28th, 2021. Number 3 is the Local Board of Appeals and Equalization, April 28th, 2021. Are there any questions or discussions on the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under number 2, consent agenda, 2B, financial reports. Number 1 is the city accounts payable for April 2021. Number 2 is the city financial statements for April 2021. Number 3 is the liquor store profit loss statement for April 2021. Have any discussions or questions on the financial reports? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept financial reports?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to number 3, public comment. This time is reserved for comments from the public on matters not listed on the agenda. Please keep comments to 3 minutes. Looks like we don't have any here tonight. Thank you. So we'll move on to number 4, the departmental reports. A, Police Chief Department Report for April 2021.
Mayor, Administrator, members of the council, attached to see the police report for April, totaling 82 calls for service, 2 of those calls for MSOP and 0 for DOC. In addition to those calls for service, we spent approximately 30 hours on MSOP calls and 0 for corrections. We should be coming to the end of that portion of it because I think most of you know now that Carleton County has been taking over the stuff at MSOP. We told them that we would still finish out the cases that we were already working on or assigned, so we still have that one lengthy one that's kind of wrapping up. We just got some of the evidence back from the BCA on that, so that should start moving forward, but it's still taking up a little bit of time. Under the self-initiated, we had 7 extra patrol. There's only 5 traffic stops for the month, 27 community engagements, 13 assists to other agencies, 30 calls for service. Didn't have any medicals for the month. Some of the other things going on, I know Katie and I met with all the officers from the department and issued out some life-saving awards, some letters of commendation for a lot of the officers, and just kind of ran over some other housekeeping things. And Katie ran through a few things from the city's point of view, and we still continue to be getting a lot of requests for fingerprints. We're one of the few doing it around here, so we're doing probably 5 to 6 fingerprints a day coming in. So I mean, I think it's a good service, and a lot of it even now is a lot of people getting done with their nursing and their different schooling requiring licenses. So they've been calling all over, and they seem to be coming from quite a ways away just to have them done. We're still working on the ATV issues. I know I answered one today on some of the routes on there. Until we get an answer back from the DNR, we're still kind of waiting on that one trail. We're still able to get them around to hit the businesses that are here. Still seeing quite a few thinking they could drive down the traffic lane on the state highway. We're trying to stop and correct that. The DNR did a saturation here a little while back, stopped quite a few. And we'll probably be doing some more, and I think even another one over Memorial Weekend, just to kind of get the message out. But overall, the complaints that I've been getting in the past have gone away, and those that were calling in the complaints are liking to change. So whatever everybody's doing and the message is getting out, that the ATV traffic's been relatively quiet, pretty good. So
yeah, I haven't received nearly as many complaints as I did this time last year. So.
yeah, so hopefully that continues. Yeah, great.
What is the qualifications for a four-wheeler to be on the highway?
Well, they can't be on any portion of the state highway going through town. So, no, not on the shoulder. I mean, the only way that they can be right now is a direct access across. So if they come from one of the other streets, you know, like if it's on Earl Ellis Drive and they want to get across, they can go straight across, but they cannot run down
In other words, there's no way they can be running down 73
Right.
and down 60.
Yeah, so that new trail that we were working on, which has already been designated as a trail, we had the meeting with the DNR, they tell us, no, that's not a designated trail, who put the signs up? And we're still waiting on the answer for that, because it's been marked that, it's been cleared that will get them all the way through town and can drop into the businesses and then use an industrial road to get through here. So they can come off the Sioux line either direction and then come in and hook onto that, but we still have the problem of getting them across the Moosehorn River, so they are running on that portion of the shoulder.
I mean, there are people saying, well, some of them say they can drive down the highway just like a car.
Yeah.
A
they
county
think-
road, they can
Yeah.
a county road, but no state
No, I
highways.
mean, state
Yeah.
highway, I think Moose Lake is a state highway.
Correct.
Yeah, and most of them, yeah, that we stopped think that, they go, oh no, I thought I could, I have turn signals, whatever else, but not on the state highway. And even though it's labeled Arrowhead Lane, the state highway trumps the Arrowhead Lane, so.
And that's a state law, that's,
No, I know, but you know,
Right.
you still have people that sometimes if you say something, they've got more smart remarks than you come up with.
that's right, right.
Next week, I'll be giving a talk to the Kiwanis Club. I'm going over a few things. I'll introduce them to our new HTC social worker that's working with law enforcement. We did another drug take-back thing, and once again, Moose Lake area is at the top for the amount that we get sent back in, which is excellent. Just so you have a reference, this was just for only a 6-month period of time. We received 117 pounds of prescription drugs to go back, whereas Carlton County Sheriff's Office had 86, Cloquet PD 61, Fond du Lac 18, and Thompson Township 11. And that's consistent every time we do that we are at the top for the amount of drugs coming back in. So people are being responsible, turning them in, and it's good to see, so they're not getting flushed down the sewer system. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet for the most part, so, yeah.
Now, maybe just a statement to the community, how you would handle any emergencies at MSOP or calls for
Yeah,
any incidents.
Yep, and we still will do that, like we talked to, that if there's an emergency, an active assault taking place or going on, and they're not able to control it, that we will still respond, as will Carlton County, the state patrol, everybody will come in until we get it under control. So that shouldn't be a worry to anybody. If there's any type of a threat, an escape, or on a medical type situation, we're gonna be on those as well. It's just the day-to-day operations that we don't have the staffing to deal with. That's kind of changed the operation. So there's still talks with the Sheriff's Department on how it's going to proceed from here, but we are not doing that part of it anymore.
And that's for DOC and MSOP.
Yes.
That's for both facilities.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, Chris.
I have a question. The life-saving award that Chad received on the 6th, was that social worker a part of this then, or was she available to this?
No, their actual kickoff date for that, they're doing a lot of the intro. We don't have the MOUs signed and everything yet. They're still being drafted, so their official start date's going to be June 1st. But he has been going on some calls, but that was 3 in the morning, and this was relatively quick. The incident that took place, so he would not. He lives out in Cromwell, so to respond here, but those will be the types of things we'll try to get him, especially in the beginning, until we know what calls we are going to have. They're going to pretty much be on a lot of them.
Well, and he might do more of like the follow-up. So how he kind of explained it is there's like 2 different ways he can respond to the calls. However, if they're at 3 o'clock in the morning, he's probably not realistically going to be able to get there. But he will do the follow-up with the person involved, so.
Yeah, and part of what he'll be doing too is like the situation here that the person needs to go to the mental health eval system and get, put in for some extra help. He'll be able to do some of the transports, line people up to do that. And now Accenture's going 24/7 security here as well, and they will be doing transports. So again, that should keep us from pulling a car if we have to go to St. Luke's and lose 2 hours with no coverage here. It should help a lot.
Quick question, does that person also respond for Cloquet in the county? So
Yeah.
they do the whole county as
Right.
individual?
And so 1 to 2 year pilot project to see how it goes. I mean, I know nationwide they're trying a lot more of this to see how it's going to work, but they need to be kind of embedded with us. So he will be spending days where he's just working out of Moose Lake. And then if he gets called somewhere else, he'll go. But he came in at our meeting to introduce himself to everybody, and so there was contact info. they'll be giving, he'll have a form of the information that the officers need to fill out so that he gets all the correct information, then he will be taking that follow-up, so we're not spending hours doing it. All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public Works Superintendent report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's spring, it's May, we're busy, it's crazy, it's good. The weather's awesome, everybody's happy. Start with the water department. The water department distributed 4.48 million gallons of drinking water in the month of April. The well house is now really coming along. There's a lot of noise down there, there's a lot of things happening. We're very busy. We did do our tie-in for the well house on Monday, which we did receive a decent amount of complaints for dirty colored water. We had a few sections of town shut down for that. We did get by with just one service main out of water at that time, so that one we did well on. Keep in mind though, everybody here and to the public, we have 3 more of these to do, so we're just getting started with that. But by our next meeting, we should be running on that well house.
New well house.
Running on that new well house. There we go. Perfect. Hydrants were flushed the last week of April, so that's all ready to go. Sewer department collected 17 million gallons of wastewater in the month of April. Treatment facility, we did do our first spring discharge in April of 35.9 million gallons of wastewater. Believe all the parameters on that were met as well, so everyone's happy, the PCA is happy. We actually, our phosphorus limit, which was a really big deal, it became a big deal in 2018. That's really turning out to be a good thing. We do have some revisions to make in our new permit, which I just saw came across on my email, I think a week or 2 ago. I think Katie and Ted, you got a copy of that as well. There's a few changes we're going to do to that we as a city have the option to do that. The BCA provides that permit to us, but then it's not like we're tied to that. We have options to say yay or nay. I don't believe anyone was under the understanding we had that kind of ability to change things. There is a couple things I'm going to change. That's definitely going to benefit us big time. Ted and Katie and I will be in communication with that one. Nothing major, but it would definitely make it a lot easier for the operations standpoint of how the phosphorus removal goes with the primaries and secondaries and everything that happens out at the wastewater treatment facility. So, the street department, pothole filling as usual. Every month, we're doing that once a month. Street sweeping is done, road restrictions are off, so we're starting to do blacktop patching as well. That's going to get kicked off here probably the last week in May around this well house thing. So it kind of just depends on where they're at and where we have to be. We're a small crew of 3, so it is what it is. Patching, pothole filling, cemeteries, campgrounds, and parks. So campgrounds all fired up, ready to go. Water's on everywhere. Everywhere temporary we have water on is on. So the depot, the cemeteries, both of them, the campground, and there's somewhere else. But anyway, everything's on, everything's running, everything's up, everything's good. Didn't have anything blow apart, freeze, everything's looking really good. So everything's looking really good for the summer. Burials at the cemeteries are happening. I think we have 6 in the next 4 days to do. It's a lot, but it's good. It's working out very well. So, yeah. Other than that, I think that's it.
Quick question,
Yeah.
Phil. Do we have any idea what our capacity is, extra capacity at the ponds yet?
No. We do not have an official number from our engineering company. However, I think now with the data we have, we could probably get a good idea.
Okay.
I think we have enough data to do that.
Okay.
We can definitely have that looked at our monthly engineering meeting if you'd like.
I'd like to see what it is, and then hopefully after our next big project to see how it changes.
See where it's going.
That'd be well worth to know.
Sure.
Yeah. 'Cause I think we're all going, I think everyone believes we're going in a real positive direction there. Yeah.
Anything else?
Thank you very much,
Yep.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Liquor store manager, Lane.
Hello, Mayor, council people. I just want to start off, I haven't been here, so we'll start off with 2020. It was rough. I think we were closed for a total of 156 days in the bar. That really took a toll on the employees. But you should be very proud of everybody. Everybody came together and made everything work. We made more money in 2020 than we did in 2019 with the bar being open all year. So that's a feat in itself. The shutdowns and reopenings and wear a mask, don't wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, put your mask on. It's been grueling, so I think we came out fairly well. But moving forward to this year, the governor says we'll be open by July 1st. So I was talking with Katie, we're going to go ahead and plan the 4th of July. If some restrictions come about, we can handle that because our outside capacity is 170 at 75%. And I don't see there being more than that many people out there at one time. So we just want to move forward and get over this. I think that's about all I have, actually.
Well,
Any
thanks,
questions?
Elaine, and please thank the team that you have,
Yeah, they really
because that
came
was
together.
quite a year, and
Mhm.
I know it affected them with work and not work, and how to figure all this out, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and we're bringing back meat raffle and bingo. It's for all you people out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Technology and library report, Katie?
The only update that I have is the minutes that are included in the agenda.
Anything new, anything the council should be aware of?
Nothing too exciting. Rory and I are trying to work through some type of a Dropbox feature for folks to submit pictures and videos and what have you. So we just worked on that a little bit today. I've got some more digging that I have to do on my end, but we're getting there.
Book sales on June 3rd and 4th at the Historical Society this year.
4th and 5th.
4th and 5th.
4th and
First
5th.
weekend in June.
Very good. There was something passed, well, the chambers next week. That'll come up for the Historical Society. Bill?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Great. So we'll go on to E, city engineer.
So I actually wasn't at this meeting, but I think the only thing that we have not covered yet or will not cover is the tie-in, but I think, now that I'm thinking about it, Phil already covered it. So all of our projects are moving forward nicely. I just got off the phone with the engineer this afternoon regarding the Trunk Highway 73 trail. And the only thing that we're kind of waiting on are some easements, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But yeah, things are moving along, so.
It's like the water tower repainting starting 7/19 to 7/30.
Yeah, so that's a little ways out yet.
Yeah.
Alyssa and I drove around after the chamber meeting today to check out some things, and it looks like the Sioux Line Trail is being ditched currently. So they're starting right at the highway and must be working their way back. So the plan is to keep that trail open for use, and I think more so on the weekends than maybe during the week, but that's part of the agreement is that they keep it completely open for use. So.
Very good. Thank you very much. Questions by the council? Next, F, the chamber conference dates.
We had a meeting today. I think they're going forward with planning events. With Governor Walz's recent update, I think that kind of changed things pretty significantly for them. It makes things easier for them, which is good. Another thing, kind of off topic, but they did approve a donation to the Historical Society Kitchen Fund on behalf of Dean Wilson, in memorial, I guess, of Dean Wilson. So that should be going to them, I would guess soon. So that was very nice of them. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, but just all the events being planned, AGA Days, they're still considering what to do with the Stampede though. They're
Yeah.
not sure totally on that.
I can't see the Stampede going myself, but that's just my
Yeah.
personal
But the
opinion.
event at the arena would go on. We're planning the 4th of July parade as always. We have to put on the poster that masks would be appropriate if you're in a large group. We haven't decided yet if it's going to be, because the largest concentration of people is between kind of like 3rd Street and 4th Street. Otherwise, people are kind of spread out, and they're still saying if you have a group of 500 people, you're supposed to mask even if you're outdoors. So we may have to put that on the poster for between 3rd and 4th on Elm.
And that mask,
Depending on, or
Yeah.
a statement that may change if the governor takes all restrictions off, which he made July 1st. But we gotta make the posters out and get that advertised in June. So we're planning just a regular parade, events in the park the same, and the fireworks. So,
and we just, Allison and I just worked together on some, a fundraising attempt for the fireworks, so we'll see how that goes. We just kind of finished stuff a couple weeks ago, and I think that she just published it today, so.
got any questions, comments? Hearing none, moving on to number 5, previously discussed business land purchase on 413 Birch Avenue.
So I discussed with Craig Anderson, who is the owner of the old school, purchasing, I should be a surveyor with my really nice drawings here, but purchasing the highlighted pieces of land. So to be clear, it is the baseball field, that little parking lot right next to the baseball field, the football field, and the tennis courts for $150,000, and I need approval from you all, and then I will move forward with getting a formal purchase agreement put together with our attorneys. I've already contacted Straight Line Survey to start getting this land surveyed and get some legal descriptions created. So.
Open discussions with the council.
I should also say that that easement is also included to access that little garage, so that will be in there too.
Oh, fantastic. I think it's a real opportunity for us, and we're never going to get again.
I'd like to make a motion to purchase that property for $150,000.
A second?
I'll second that.
Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Katie, for the work on that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to do it.
Moving on to number 6, new business, 6A, Lakehead Constructors Incorporated pay application number 6.
So this goes through the end of April, and it is a total of $71,062.75.
Council, discussion and/or motion?
I'll make the motion, we pay application number 6 to the Lakehead Constructors.
Do I have a second?
So moved.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to 6B, Police Department staffing. You, Katie, or the chief?
Yeah, I'll start, if you guys have follow-up questions for Chief Duncan, by all means. But what I did here is Chief Jutton came up with what a 3-person rotating schedule, I should back up. With Mike McNulty no longer being an employee here, we have some options, a couple of different options on how we'd like to staff the police department. One of those options is to fill Mike's position with another full-time officer that would maintain our 24-hour coverage. Another option would be the option that is presented here, and that would be a 3-person rotating schedule. They work 10-hour days, and it's not set in stone, but we would be unstaffed for 4 hours. So from 2 to 6, 3 to 7, something along those lines. So we've got, it's kind of cut off here, but it's nonetheless, it's a schedule of what it would look like for the officers. What I also did was I redid our 2021 budget to include one less officer, I guess, to exclude an officer. And the net effect of that was right around $90,000 of a cost savings, which includes everything from para to health insurance to life insurance, all of the applicable taxes, and any potential overtime. So I am open to discussion on this if you guys have any particular questions. I'm sure Darren is also.
I have something to say on this issue. As y'all know, I brought this up at other meetings. Some of the counselors, or the counselors have heard that, some of the people in this room haven't heard everything. I don't believe Katie was involved on some of these discussions, and I know the public hasn't heard this. I have a brief statement to read here. If you would bear with me for that, I'd appreciate it. I do take this situation very seriously. We have an opportunity to save the taxpayers a considerable amount of money for the use on updating our infrastructure in sewers, water, and street resurfacing. Our generation wore out this infrastructure. The first 10 road projects will take at least 30 years to complete, and one project every 3 years. There are roughly around 80 projects plus an additional 60 water lines that freeze and need replacing. We need tens of millions of dollars to fix these issues. By not fixing these in a timely manner, we are simply passing the burden on to future generations for what we have wore out. Sales tax is not generating enough revenue to replace these issues in a faster time frame. Plus, our general fund doesn't currently provide enough additional funding to speed up these projects either. If we are to do large projects, we are reliant on state grants that cannot be counted on. 2 city administrators have stated that in order to speed this up, a special assessment of up to 30% on properties along the street under construction would be required. With taxes already too high, we as a council rightfully rejected that choice. Our citizens simply cannot afford it. Although possibly necessary, simply resurfacing of roads is only a Band-Aid and wastes money, which ignores the problems under the roadway and only exacerbates the problem, passing it on into the future. We need to find more infrastructure revenue someplace if we are ever going to accomplish fixing it without passing the burden on to future generations. The police department budget is $52,000 more than what we take in total property taxes. It is 3 1/3 times larger than the public works department. We also now have an additional yearly $40,000 in healthcare coverage for officers that have recently left. which was unforeseen and will more than likely increase in the near future by another 20,000. We are a small town of around 1,300 people. We are a town 2 miles long with a tax base of only 28%, meaning only 28% of the city's property is taxable, far less than other cities. Most towns our size do not even have a police department and rely solely on the county sheriff. Very few, if any, have a daytime police force, let alone a 24/7 department with 2 officers on duty during part of daytime hours. When the prison first came to town, a large police force was believed necessary by some due to the thought that crime would increase. That crime increase did not materialize, and crime remains relatively low in town. Where else are we going to find funding for this? Increasing business and sales tax would be ideal and nice, but that isn't going to increase anytime soon and may even decrease. Can we find it in other areas like Public Works or the library? They do not have that level of funding, and the Public Works is far too important to be cut. It's what makes the town function. Without it, we have no town. No, we need to take it from where the majority of the funding is going, the police department. Simply because of the old saying, that's where the money is. It was my understanding and impression that our recent decision to go from a managing police chief to a working police chief, we would be able to make cuts to the department. It is also my understanding from speaking with past counselors that if the decision to go 24/7 ever became too expensive, that it would have to be reevaluated and brought back down to an affordable cost to the taxpayers. It has been mentioned that a crime increase by cutting the PD may lead to devaluation of property, or that future events may lead to an increase of crime. But this crime increase is an unknown and only a guess. What is known is a lack of up-to-date infrastructure will definitely lead to property devaluations. That is a given. If cutting the police force was to lead to more crime, then the situation can always be revisited and changes made. If sales tax and revenue were to increase in the future, it could also be revisited. Asking the taxpayers to hire another officer because we have officers that live too far away to respond to on-call is not the fault of the taxpayers. It is the city council's responsibility to hire officers who are committed to this town and live close by. The taxpayers shouldn't have to shoulder another additional expense because of this. If the city can't find any qualified officers within a short distance, then does the city and community really support a population large enough to even have a police department? Do the people living on 1st, 2nd, 3rd, Sioux Hill, etc., all the streets in town, want to wait 3, 9, 30, 50 plus years to see their roads fixed? The 80th project would be completed in 240 years. Who wants to move or to live in a community that can't fix its infrastructure in a timely manner? Do we want to leave a massive debt to our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren for what we wore out? Our federal government is already doing that with the trillions and trillions of dollars they are printing and spending like no tomorrow. But tomorrow will definitely come, and I, for one, do not wish to leave the future generations holding the bill. I am talking for and representing the taxpayers. That is what I was elected to do. This is not enjoyable for me to bring up, and I support and appreciate our police department, but I find the budget has grown too large for a town of roughly 1,300 with a limited 28% tax base. It is unaffordable if we are ever to replace our infrastructure in a timely manner and not place the burden on our future generations. If we could say by cutting the police force and get the state to cover the PTSD health costs, then we could make a real dent in finding the infrastructure funding needed to repair it in a timely manner and still have a police force. I started this discussion long before the George Floyd protests, before the Kenosha, Wisconsin incident, before Black Lives Matter protests, before all the inner city riots and calls for police reform. This is a different situation based solely on revenue and funding in a small community. I've based none of this reasoning off of these past events because they do not relate to our small community in northern Minnesota, and it happened far away. I find it unaffordable for a town of our size with 28% tax base to have 2 officers on duty during the day, nor can we afford 24/7 coverage at this time. We pay our property taxes expecting to be able to maintain our town and infrastructure in a timely manner. The size and amount of the PD budget and force make that impossible. It is not the job of the city or taxpayer to provide 24/7 protection for every citizen. That is the responsibility of the citizens themselves. We as a city can only provide what the taxpayers can afford. I also have a question. For Councilor Jutman, I value your opinion, but you stated once you found out that I was concerned about us hiring your brother due to nepotism, that you would abstain from voting on police issues. After hearing that, I was confident and made a motion to hire your brother. I hope you stay true to your word. I hope you don't take offense with me by bringing that up, but that was the discussion.
No, if I could respond to that quickly. This is the 3rd time you brought up nepotism with me, and you have a right to do so. I took an oath as a police officer, and I served the state of Minnesota for 20 years. And the only thing that I have and did have as an officer was my word. And I did state that anything that would be a conflict with the chief of police, where I would be deemed using nepotism would be that word, I would not vote on that. I believe it is more of an opinion that by you that me voting on this subject, which was just brought up, would involve that. I do not disagree. I do disagree with that statement wholeheartedly after hearing what you're talking about. I am a taxpayer in the city of Moose Lake. I cannot simply forget 20 years of law enforcement and what that brings to the council. I am the only counselor here that has law enforcement background, and I do have experience, and I would like to talk briefly. And this is just shooting from the hip because I didn't know that you had this letter, and thank you for reading it. And I know that you're very passionate about that, Walt, and I appreciate that. When I started at Carleton County in 2001, the Fond du Lac Police Department was a part-time police department, and they closed at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. At that time, we would position our squads on the reservation because that's when everything would happen. We would have shootings, we would have assaults. I'm not saying that we had it all the time, but that's when the problem would occur because people knew that they did not have service. I'm not saying that that would happen here, but I have witnessed that firsthand. So I'm just keeping that in mind. You also brought up our projects, and thank you for doing that, Councilor Lauer, on how long it would take to complete these projects. As you did so, I looked at the figure of using $87,000, and I'll try to be short if I can here. The savings of going down 4 to 3 officers would save us $87,000 is what we're looking at. That would come down to it would take us over 17 years to pay for our first project, okay, on that figure alone, just using that figure alone. If you use that figure of losing 4 hours a day, that would mean 2.8 years of us not having a police department. 2.8 years of no police coverage. And that's not saying that the county wouldn't come, the state patrol wouldn't come. But I want that to sink home, 2.8 years to pay for the first project. So we can look at different sides of the coin, and Councilor Lawler has, again, very passionate, and his figures are true in a lot of ways. I look at it from more so the protection side of things, and I can agree with him and agree to disagree on just how we perceive things. So I thank you for your time.
Any other councilors? Yes, sir. Greg.
I have the tendency to go towards Walt on the simple fact is we start off with that the city can't afford $550,000 or $600,000 police force. Okay, has anybody here ever asked our residents in this, if they would mind if we turned around and asked them to donate $25 a month for every adult person in this town to go towards our police department? Or would they like to have their taxes brought up 10% to cover, to have a $500,000 police force or 24/7? I mean, people said they want a police force. I'll agree on that point, but nobody ever agrees to the fact is that they want their tax increase. So as a council, we have to look at the fact is, all right, we're being paid by them, so we don't. So my point of view is that we have to come up with some other types of solutions to justify before we can come along and say that we can afford $600,000.
So, to your point, a couple of things that are on the back end that you guys probably don't see that I want to bring up. The liquor store is a really weird situation in that they currently have negative dollars because years ago, you guys refinanced, I'm not sure who was on the council then, but you guys refinanced their debt and absorbed it with the sewer fund. That's getting really, really close to being paid off, which is good. Because what that means is we can take whatever the liquor store makes in a year, which is roughly $100,000, and transfer that to our general fund each year. So I would think, I don't know, I can't predict the future, but I would think by 2022 that number will be positive, which is good, because then we can transfer that. And going forward, then we would have, like I said, roughly $100,000 back in our general fund. So that's more than $87,000 right away. The other thing that Chief Jutton and I have been tossing around the idea of is talking to MSOP to seeing if they would be willing to cover an officer, and we would take back the duties, I guess, assigned with that. Now, we each have our own reservations about that with how quickly they pulled out of the sewer lining project, or the sewer replacement, how many years ago. So those are some things that we're looking at on the back end and kind of weighing pros and cons. And Ted and I actually will be writing a letter to our representatives on that subject very, very soon. I can't guarantee that it's going to happen, but we're going to try, which that would solve for sure this $87,000 problem. Those are a few things that I thought of as you guys were talking.
Well, then, if we were to be bringing in more funding later on, then we would revisit this and talk about hiring an officer at that time.
I also-
At this time, it is clearly unaffordable if we are ever going to fix our infrastructure in a timely manner and not pass it on to future generations. And that is what we are doing.
If anyone's going to talk, please raise your hand so I could, tell them. Okay. Yes, Chris.
I just got a few comments and thank you, Walt, I appreciate your
Welcome.
comments. I think you mentioned that we would be adding an additional officer, where realistically, we're just replacing an officer. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then, I guess, my opinion is this crime isn't increasing in Moose Lake due to the fact we do have police protection, police on call 24 hours. I believe if we go off that, we're gonna end up being a town like Sandstone, Sturgeon Lake, Barnum, you can go to all these little communities. There's no community in this area that I know of that is like Moose Lake. There's no community that is as small as Moose Lake, has the two large state facility, one a correctional facility, one you're committed, so they are, they've served their time, but they're committed. We have a large major hospital, we have clinics, we have pharmacies. Moose Lake grows because people want to come here knowing their business is going to be safe. I wouldn't want to bring my business here if I didn't know that there was no police protection.
We're not talking about no police protection. Please.
Well, we're
please
talking
hold.
about
Let-
police
let-
protection
let
between
people-
a certain time. That's the time, like Councilor Judson said, is people know that's when the criminals come out. They know there's no protection. They know that Carleton County services from the entire county, they know that they're not going to get down here in a fast station. The state patrol, they're limited to their resources, and Pine County, I believe, is huge, and they don't have more than a couple officers on. One's in maybe the north part, one's in the south, same with Carleton County. We can't rely on them to get here in a fast,
Response.
yeah. Our people would be sitting waiting for an officer to appear. And I think the people that I have talked to, they would be willing to increase their taxes to have 24-hour police protection. They count on that. They know they're safe in Moose Lake. They know because we have the protection, the criminals are more likely not to come and try. I mean, obviously there is crime everywhere, but I think it's a big deterrent to know that we have a 24-hour police protection.
Greg had raised his hand, and then I'll call you.
Part of that, I'm not saying getting rid of the police department, I'm not saying that we don't want 24. I'm saying the fact is that for to be able to afford 24 hours, we as a council or whatever people have to figure out how it can be paid for. And at the moment, we don't have that really. We have ways that may be coming.
We
and
do,
stuff,
so
and stuff,
we
but-
do have it budgeted
but-
right now, and I just wanna reiterate to you guys that we have not raised the property tax levy, I believe, I'm going off memory, going on 3 years. So we have been doing everything that we can
I know that.
to not raise the levy, so that's a good thing.
But we also, this last, when they evaluated everything, most people, or a lot of people, I should say, in this town, their taxes for Moose Lake went up 20%.
That was because their value increased.
That's true, but that's
Yeah.
still out of their pocket. That's still taxes. So you want to add tax to that, then it's another story. But as far as the prison and the hospital up there and stuff like that, Moose Lake does not, the people that come here, 90% of them do not live in Moose Lake. They live in the vicinity around it because of the fact that it's here. They don't live in Moose Lake, so they really, how much do they help Moose Lake is another story. I don't know. I mean, yes, if I was coming, when I originally was coming back here, I was not coming to Moose Lake. I was coming to the surrounding area. In fact, I had property and everything else bought. But somehow or other, somebody talked me into buying the old church.
And here you are.
And here I am, in the middle of all this, which I am not comfortable to be and stuff, but because I understand that I catch it from home, the fact is that we have to have 24 hours. And I'm, and she's a bean counter, so I have a problem at times, so, but I mean, it is not the point that I don't want a police department. It's the fact that I want to figure out some way that this city can afford it. Now, whether or not what we do is another big ballgame. I mean, we just spent $150,000 for a piece of property, which I believe will start after a year from now, paying itself off within 5 years. That'll be gone. Plus the fact is that the campground at Park makes money every year.
We got Walton and then Chris.
Yeah, when Chris says that we'll be voting for having the same size of a police force, when we went to a working police chief, it's my impression that we would be able to get rid of an officer. But if we vote for another patrol officer, we might as well just go back to a managing police chief. And Chris is right, our town is different than other ones. We have a 28% tax base. Most other towns have a much larger tax base than that. We operated this police department for over 100 years without 24/7 coverage. You know, and I understand, you know, Councilor Juntner and Councilor Husso's opinion. They have been involved with the police business, and their families have for their entire lives. I expect them to want to see the best for that. That is their livelihoods. But I'm talking for the people of Moose Lake and the taxpayers that cannot afford this. We will never, ever get these roads and sewers and water lines fixed unless we find more money to start doing it. I do not think Phil wants to spend the rest of his life fixing pothole after pothole after pothole. It is ridiculous. This cannot go on. It's gone on far too long. It's what has put our infrastructure problems where they are. We do not have enough money to fix them, and we're never going to unless we do something to change it.
It's Chris, I think, had her arm.
Again, I just want to comment that this isn't an addition. It's not going to change the budget that we approved. So, and I guess I'm kind of confused because the police isn't my livelihood at all. So I guess I take kind of offense to that because I don't profit from any police department, so.
I'm not trying to offend you. It's just that your family has been in the police department, and I imagine that's the way that you will lean.
I'm looking for the safety of the community that I reside in and the people that I have talked to would like to continue to see 24-hour police coverage. I'm just relaying that. I was elected official. That is what I'm relaying.
Greg, yes.
Could we table this for a month?
I would like to speak before any tabling is done.
I mean, that was a question that, can it be or not?
A person on the council could bring it up to the table and it could go to a vote to see if it's tabled. But I'd like to speak first before we do that. First of all, you know, and I respect what you were saying, Greg, about the community and it has to be paid for and stuff. Thanks goodness because of our excellent city administrator that is budgeted the police department, and that is with another police officer. This has grown over decades. It is not something that happened in a short time. As it has grown, different councils have approved how this has grown. And because of that, you can see the community supported that over decades. Otherwise, people would have been voted out purposely to get rid of certain elements or portions of the police department. So to me, it's been supported for decades by different councils, by different mayors and so forth. And also sometime in the year, in the 2000s, I think Darren Newdad had already left, had moved on. The police department did go back to like a 3/4 day, or they didn't have 24-hour coverage. And as soon as that started, for like about a 3 or 4 year period, there was crime during those hours that we did not have coverage. And Chris, you may remember that. And that's why we went back to a 24-hour coverage. It was constant. And the calls would go into the county, the officers would respond when they had time. By then, the crime's over, things are gone, people, it's already happened. Very few of them were solved. It didn't get solved until we got a 24-hour police department back, where they were here, started investigations, caught the people, kind of cleaned up an element that had moved in purposely because they knew when they were off. And there were many break-ins, there was robberies, there was even intimidation on the street walking down Elm, which was reported to the police and to the city at the time. So it got to be a terrible element going on, and it took a full-time police department to clean that out. And the people asked for that. So the history is there that once we did drop back, we had a problem. Request was to get that coverage back because the county couldn't respond in time. So we did, and it cleared up that element. The element is gone, granted. I don't know what would happen if we did, but I'm guessing the same thing would happen again. For myself, with what is going on in the nation, I know you mentioned that, there's a lot of unrest and there's a lot of things going on, and I think the community would be safe with a 24-hour coverage. I agree on it's a big chunk of the budget, and I think that's our responsibility to manage it. I disagree on not doing grinding and overlay. I think since 2005, we've done 15 different areas of the city, ground and overlay, and they lasted a good 10 years. Some of them are starting to break up, which is normal. I know that infrastructure needs replaced, and I think we're planning a large one. But if you think we're going to get that done with $87,000 more, you're wrong. It won't happen. It's too expensive. I think we can do what we can with the infrastructure. But I personally think we should be doing grinding and overlay like we did in the past 10, 15 years. The citizens complained about different roads, especially on Industrial Road. I don't know if you remember that, Chris, and a large section was done, and that portion is still in excellent condition. It was not completed all the way to the end. You quit at the second, I call it the co-op building, but now it's the feed store and granary or whatever, yeah. From then on, we didn't complete it, but that should be done. To me, the same thing. The ground overlay was perfect. It's worked perfectly. And if they will disintegrate. You should pick them, to me, for those projects that are out 10, 15 years, because it's too long to wait. The worst roads and the worst infrastructure should be done first. These are just, to me, things that the council needs to discuss, and yet you guys have to get this all into this whole decision. You brought a lot of it up, so have the other council members, so has Katie. To me, this is a discussion that has to be. With that, those are my opinions on that. I'm just one vote also. I normally want to wait till all of you have spoken so that to me, you as council members should have that right, and I'm glad that you did, each and every one of you. With that, I'll step back and let you guys decide what you want to do with a motion, whether it's to move ahead or if it's to table it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mind if I comment on a few things?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I would like to have seen Councilor Lauer give some discovery so we could take a look at that 3-page letter. There's a lot of information in there that's inaccurate. Try and keep this professional. As far as Greg's, comments about the money and stuff, the state is still looking at passing a bill to reimburse the cities for any of those healthcare expenses that we're currently seeing. So that would drop it drastically. By me coming here, Councilor Lauer, said that they wanted a working chief. Believe me, I'm working, and you're paying a lot less than your previous chief just because of the negotiations we did when I came here. So these other health expenses, we also took a $12,000 hit to the police budget this year. We're probably bringing in 15 to 20,000 a year now with all the fingerprints that are going on. We went, like I said, down from a chief, a sergeant, an investigator, and a full-time clerical to a part-time clerical, no sergeant, no investigator. And everybody that I've talked to in the community, because this has already been leaking out, is we want our 24-hour coverage police department. So I think it's a very small number that you're referencing compared to what the actual community here is thinking. I know for a fact that I get calls from different companies all the time asking about how is it for you recruiting. It's not a problem for us here in the city. It's like we have people coming from all over with really good experience wanting to work here. And if that changes, I can see you're going to lose, and it's already been referenced, we're going to lose people. And that's not a threat to anybody, but it's just like, we believe strongly that it needs to be here. The citizens here, need that 24-hour coverage. Just the other night, we would have a dead, later teen female because of an attempted suicide at 3 in the morning if we didn't have an officer on. That's worth a hell of a lot more than $70,000, $80,000. So if that's what the city wants, they go, but I just wanted you to hear my opinion that it's valuable, and I appreciate Councilor Lauer's concern for that, and I am too as far as what the budget goes, but I just read another article, 60% of all officers killed in the line of duty are in small town America, less than 11,000 people. So they still need the services, they still need the training, they still need the equipment that all the big agencies have. So you can't cut on that kind of stuff. And I think I speak for the bulk of our people here in the city of Moose Lake.
Yes, sir.
Well, everybody that I have spoken to disagrees with that, about spending this much money. We're talking about the money. There could still be 24/7 coverage if we did not have 2 officers working during the daytime hours. We could still cover 24/7. We do not need to have 2 officers working at the same time during the day. All the other years before, past decades, we never had 2 officers on duty at the same time. And like I said, this is simply unaffordable if we are ever going to fix our infrastructure and not pass that burden on to future generations.
But this isn't the 1950s. I mean, things have changed
That was back in the
drastically.
60s, 70s, 80s.
The requirements, technology, everything is, increased dramatically. The training that everybody has to have, the constant changes, it's, and me coming here tonight is, I would like to see a decision made on that. By waiting, you're going to continue to pay a ton more overtime, even just for the rest of this month. So it continues and continues, so it's, I guess, up to you guys to make that decision.
I would agree sorry, go ahead.
Who raised your hand? Chris, sorry.
I was just going to say, I'd like to make a motion that we proceed forward in replacing the officer that has left us immediately.
There's been a motion, so let's do the next part and then.
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Okay, tell them that for discussion.
That was my turn to make a motion. Was it not?
You can speak, it's discussion. You can speak and say whatever you like.
No, I mean, for the simple fact is that if I wanted to table it before she made a motion, or if I had something to say, I would, point is that I'm not against the police department, but I am to the point
I
of.
understand. Well, I asked you to hold off on any motion until I spoke.
You asked me to hold off.
Right, until I spoke, to
Right.
give my opinion like everybody else.
Right.
And I understand that.
So then I should have had the floor, right?
I guess I raised my hand, we were going by,
I was going by calling who raised their hand next. I can't.
I thought after that last meeting, we tabled it for this one. So
I guess there's a motion to me on the floor, so.
I know she made a motion and I got a second, Greg. I have to call
That's
it.
fine.
I had no choice. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion from the council?
My discussion part would be, I'd like to table to the point of the people have more time to actually think about what's actually happened so far this evening.
Understand? Yes.
I guess I'd like to make a comment. I think we've had 7 months to think about what we need to do, and how we were gonna do it, and I guess we can rehash this over for the next 12 months. I don't think summer's coming, and I think this is, especially during the summer, to have another, the replacement officer on duty. With summer months, it's even the town triples. So I guess that's my comment.
I would also
Yes,
make
sir.
the comment, if I may, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we are filling a position, does the police chief not have the ability, if someone's not working out, to, in the first year, I believe, to, someone's not a vested employee, we're well within that period for next year's budget as well, if that decision is made, the council can make that decision. Not that we'd ever want to take somebody's livelihood, but I believe that we've already done that with the library position. The council made a tough decision there. So that's all I have to say, is that we would have the ability to make a decision, a different decision, if this bill does pass.
Any other comments or discussion from the council?
I'm willing to know if the council's willing to go from just to having one person on during the day and taking that second person and putting them on during the night so we could be 24/7.
If that was because a motion made, if the person wanted to change their motion, they can. If not, the motion will stand as stated.
From Walton, I'm just wanting to make sure that I understand what you're asking. And if I understand it correctly, we could not do that. The position that we're hiring for is a patrol officer, and they would work a 12-hour schedule, versus Chief Jetman works 5 8-hour days.
Greg, do you have any statements? And I'm asking you because of what happened.
Well, I have nothing to say.
Okay. Any further questions, discussion? Council Lauer had made a suggestion of any change to the motion. All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there no other discussion? I'm asking all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
We have a 3-2 split. The motion passed. You know, for the council, this is the kind of discussion that needs to happen. And it's a good discussion, no matter how the turnout is, because it does affect what you do in the future with your budget, how you plan your budget, the next year when we do planning in August and September, if you're looking for ways to cut the budget, I would suggest other ways than the direction we're going. Just as an example of like when the school did a budget cut, they cut every department by 10% or 5%. They didn't look at one department to make all their money from, because it does affect one department more than others. And granted, some departments have a lot of money and a lot of budget where you can do it. But if you look at it and want to do it in a fair way, to get more money for projects, I would look at a cut across the whole city, all departments, so that not one department takes the heavy load. Because you can really destroy a department, you can destroy morale, you can destroy the whole process that built that department over many decades. So just a suggestion, something to think about. There's a couple months before we have a budget again, before we start planning for the next year. But there are other ways, and there are ways to make money, and as time goes on, we may see some success. Is we don't know what the legislature will do with the insurance. That would immediately bring back in 40,000 right now, and possibly another 20 in the future. That right there would be 60,000, and the way we restructured that payment with the liquor store, which we had to do to save money, that will end, which will bring in another 100,000 back into our, excuse me. That'll bring it back into our budget that we don't have right now, which we did have at one time, and it was taken away. Right away, we're talking 160,000 that could possibly go back into road projects or infrastructure projects. So we have some real good possibilities there. One of them is a for sure thing, and that is the liquor store, which is 100,000. The other is dependent on the legislature, which is, I think everyone know, up in the air. So. With that, I'm going to move on to the next subject, 6C, the 2017 Caterpillar 450F loader backhoe.
So this was emailed out to you guys a little bit in advance, just so you guys had time to ask questions, ask Phil questions, ask me questions. We do have this budgeted for in a couple of different places. We have $157,000 budgeted for this in our 2021 capital funds. We also have roughly $60,000 saved from 2020's capital funds. So we've got more than enough money saved for this. We knew that this needed to be replaced within the next, I don't know, year. And we were not looking for, in fact, I told Phil to not go looking, and this kind of fell in our lap. So I'm gonna let Phil talk about the details of it, because he went and looked at the machine. But before I do that, I let you have the reins here. I just wanna reiterate to you guys that we are doing really, really well with all of the things that we have going on in our city, budget-wise. We're doing very, very well. So I understand that the police department looks like it's the biggest budget, but we've got things implemented that we've never had before, like the sales tax. We've never had that money coming in before. The gas franchise fee, we've never had that coming in before. Very soon we'll have the liquor store revenue that we can transfer. We've never had that before, well, since I've been here anyways. We've got some of these things in place, and they take a while to get the ball rolling, and I was just talking to Phil about, I finally feel like that ball is rolling. So I don't want you guys to feel nervous that all of a sudden, we don't have money. Well, we are doing perfectly fine. In fact, we are doing really, really well, and I'm very proud of the work that we do. Walt is right, we're 28% tax, we have a 28% taxable market in Moose Lake. That's terrible. Nobody can argue that, that's terrible. But the things that we do with our resources is outstanding, and I'm very proud of the work that I do here and that all of the employees do here to stretch our dollar as far as possible for you guys. I think we all do a very, very good job here. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. Do not be nervous about the state of our budget. We have budgeted fine. Sure, there are hiccups, but there are hiccups every single year. There's always unexpected expenses. This is not one of those unexpected expenses, though.
You know, before we go into that, it just hit me that I forgot two things that I should have stated. We do not have a campground director anymore.
Correct.
That funding is back with us. The same with a contract for $10,000 for the cemetery.
Correct.
We don't spend that anymore. That's back into our budgeting.
Correct.
We are making advances in our budget across,
Albeit small.
yes,
Small.
but they're
Yes.
10,000 here, 10,000 there. They're adding up.
Mhm.
They're starting to make a difference. And it is because Katie is listening to what you're saying about the budget in these large projects. So when she looks at all these different elements, like when I brought up the budget to really think about it again, when she looks at those during last year and started putting all this responsibility onto the street department, it saved literally $20,000 to begin with, and maybe more. Phil can't get any balder, so we're good. I had to lighten it up.
Shaved 2 days ago, so actually I could.
I had to lighten it up.
I appreciate you doing that, Ted, I really do, thank you.
So just to recap, we have $157,000 in our 2021 capital budget set aside for a loader. Additionally, we have a little over $60,000 that I set aside from our 2020 that we did not spend, from our 2020 capital projects that we did not end up spending. So we've got over $200,000 set aside for a loader. This loader is from MnDOT. It's a 2017. How many hours does it have?
400, and it's right here.
So 400-ish hours.
57.
It is basically, that's about as brand new as you can get for a used machine. A brand new machine with all the attachments and everything that this one has would retail for $180,000 if we bought it brand new, roughly. So, I don't know, why don't you talk about.
So
the-
first, I'm gonna apologize, because if I knew we were gonna do something like this, I would have been here a couple times, talking about it, instead of like, oh, hey, guys, guess what? Because I don't like doing that. But like Katie mentioned, this did just fall in our lap. This 450F, I actually demoed, it would have been a 2020 450F last winter. This is the exact, not the exact machine, but same model, same everything as what I was gonna propose for a new machine. So to have this exact thing, other than 4 years older, fall in our lap, it's huge. Especially for what we can do here as far as saving money. I think it looks like we're at 105,000 for this machine. We are, part of all this too would be getting rid of our other loader, which I would recommend selling that on consignment through Caterpillar. They do charge a fee. That is what we've done previously with our old equipment that we have sold. And they've done pretty well for us. Used equipment is actually really hot right now. They're having a hard time getting it. So I think this is all, it's all really good. It's just happening really fast. So that's kind of the gist of this. I did run up and run this machine at MnDOT headquarters about a month ago. I think it was a day or two after the last council meeting. I ran up to MnDOT headquarters and ran it. Ran it through the whole gamut and the whole works, and everything turns out fine. I did have Ziegler include their service report or their inspection report in here. That's in the packet. Any questions? Because it's all pretty much in there. Go ahead, Craig.
Do you like the machine?
Yes.
Actually, I understand, but then I've had a discussion with you, so it's probably unfair for me to say that. I also had a discussion with Scott about the machine and our old machine. And myself knowing what a piece of equipment costs, because I have it in the field before. I don't think we could find a better deal, especially after the fact that when turns around and sells the other machine, we're getting a brand new machine for less than half price.
This is a unique situation.
It is, it really is, because situations like this don't happen every day. I mean, this is essentially, by the time we're all done buying and selling and all this, we're
70-ish?
savings?
Well, no, I'm saying
Yeah,
cost.
70
Seventy.
to 80,
Yeah.
$100,000.
And this comes with all attachments that we
This comes
would
with
have.
more than what you guys would have gave me in the beginning.
We
So
would have
I'm
had to buy
excited.
these attachments.
I'm very
separately.
excited.
Yeah.
Yes,
So they all come with it instead of having to buy them separate.
correct,
So that's huge too.
right.
Again,
And
just
this-
the budget again real quick,
Yeah, go ahead.
just to explain it again,
Yep.
so we understand.
So we have over $200,000 saved, set aside for this loader, from between 2021 and last year's capital money. Yeah, so $217,000 we've got set aside. So, I can comfortably say that this is no problem as far as our budget goes. This was 100% budgeted for. I just never thought we would get it for this good of a deal.
All right, council, questions? Yes, Chris?
Just more of a comment, and I guess it's just, I'm gonna make it because it's bothering me. And nothing against you, Phil, but, you know, we had before the police department thing, we agreed to pay $150,000 for some land. And now we had such a big discussion over $86,000 that was in the budget already, and that was, you know, about an hour discussion. And then it comes up to this backhoe, you know, and $105,000 we don't think anything of because we're saying it is in the budget. I just can't wrap my head around how easy some decisions are for land, and we're putting a dollar figure on the public safety. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other question? Yes, sir.
I would just like to thank anybody, whether Katie or Phil, whoever really did their due diligence here. You saved the taxpayers a lot of money. So thank you both very much, and I don't know if Ted was involved or whoever, but that's amazing. And those are the big savings that we've talked about, and that's why when Walt brings up a big concern about money, and Greg talks about it, and all of us have our input, that's, again, Ted brought it up, this is why we're here. We are a representative of the people, and I would say kudos to all of you that have done that. That's a great job, and that's meaningful.
And like we talked about, probably late last year, was what I want to do every single year is we always have a few $1,000s left over in our capital funds. And what I want to do with that every year is exactly what I did with it last year, is put it into a separate fund so it doesn't just get eaten up into the general fund. It's separated, and I can see it on our GL, and I know what it's there for. So I want to keep doing that, and that may be another way for us to, I mean, we're not going to do a road project with that, but that could help pay for part of a road project, or if something like this ever presents itself again. It's thinking things like that differently than we've done them. It's not easy, but now that we've done it, I want to keep doing that.
We're looking at a savings of $95,000. Yes, sir.
This is what I was basically trying to get at the point during the discussion on, where it isn't a matter whether it's the police department, it's a fact of the amount that, the money that is there, is it, or is there some way of improving that? I mean, because the fact is, yes, we need a police department, I've never argued that point, but I do bring up the point of that, are there other alternatives in ways that have not been so-called, and so that's all. I mean,
I can confidently say that I've lost sleep over this subject,
well,
and
I know,
and-
because I've had some discussions
I-
with you on a point and
Yeah.
stuff, and
I truly cannot think of any other way to be creative with the police department. And I'm not saying that there's not a possibility. I personally cannot think of one. So
I mean. 'cause-
I appreciate you saying that,
I
though.
mean, but I mean, because I've seen the difference that's happened since our new chief has taken over and the things that have improved. And I guess what I'm thinking in that direction is that I believe that things have went in the right direction and gotten better, only that I still believe that we have to keep trying.
Yeah, we've got work to do, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't know what direction the discussion will bring something?
Well, this is part, I mean, I
It'll
don't
may
remember
stir
any real
something.
hardcore
Yeah.
discussions with really anybody on exactly what all the different directions you could go. So I mean, you know, yes, I'm coming from one direction, and what I understand is
Yeah.
a little bit on dollars and cents.
Believe me, there has been longer discussions in this room on this very subject in years past, and Chris can attest to it. A lot longer than what we did tonight, this afternoon. Believe me, it has been quite a bit of discussion. And not easy, but you know what, they're necessary. And things grow, things change, and they will in the future too.
And I appreciate hearing all this, but unfortunately, I still think we're going to be putting a tremendous burden on our future generations for fixing what we wore out. And it wasn't about not giving people police protection, it was about responsible spending. Of course, people need protection, but I just find it almost impossible to fix our infrastructure projects in a timely manner. Like I said, the 80th project is going to take 240 years.
It's none of that is easy, and you know what? Every single community that was formed about 100 years ago have 100-year-old infrastructure, and that's probably more than half the communities in Minnesota, and they got the same problem. They're facing it. And it's not easy, and it's not going to be a quick, short solution to it. And that's the reality of it.
In 1918, after the fire, they replaced all the water lines, the sewer lines in the streets in town, and they paid it all off by 1933. I don't know why we're going to have such a horrible problem doing it when they were able to do it. But they weren't spending a super large chunk of their budget on the police department. They didn't have a super huge government to fund.
Yeah, but you remember their populations were maybe half of what we are right now, and they didn't have any state facilities either that took away the land. That land, if it was in the city limit, would have been in the tax rolls.
Full fringe benefits for Carleton County deputies, $137,000 a year. So if you look at what we're spending compared to equal coverage and them not being here, that's what Carleton's at.
We get off schedule here. We're on the backhoe. I'd like to thank everybody's input. Is there any more discussion on the backhoe? This 2017 Caterpillar 450F loader backhoe. If not, do we have a motion to accept that bid and purchase this equipment?
Second.
Any further questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And I skipped a step in B.
What's that?
We did a vote, and it was a split vote on staffing, but we also had an individual brought forward to fill the position, Chad A. Pattison.
So Chad is a current part-time employee, and he's one of those that expressed interest in working for us full-time. I did bring this forward to the personnel committee so that they had an opportunity to figure out if this is the way that we wanted to fill the position, should it go that way, or I guess look at the different options that we've got. I included Chad's cover letter, resume, and then a certificate there. So my understanding from the personnel committee was that they would recommend moving forward with hiring. Officer Pattison. However, I would request that we move I'm not sure how the schedule works out.
Well, right now, he's taking 2 weeks vacation just to fill for us, and he's plugged into our schedule for this month. If he's not, and he has to go off because he would, for insurance reasons, he would have to go back to Fond du Lac for whatever period of time, we would have, within a couple days, more overtime spent than it would be for the insurance. So if we leave, we'd have close to 15 shifts left open for the rest of the month if we don't put him on.
So I guess I'll leave that up to you guys if you want to hire him at all, hire him immediately, or hire him with a June, I'm not sure how the schedule works out, but a June start date, just due to insurance reasons.
Council, yes, sir.
I would say hire him at the moment, as long as I believe that's the direction that we conceded that we're gonna go, so I would say hire him.
I guess,
Yes.
I guess as I was looking at him, we've already considerably put time in with him, so I believe we should go that route to hire him from the part-time to full-time. He also does come with some training certificates that will be useful in our police department, which will cut back on other training that we have to pay for. So I think our investment in him is already there, so I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to ask something. How close to town does he live?
We'll wait till we get, if we had a motion on the floor, we have to do the motion. Pardon?
I said I'd like to make a motion, but he asked to speak, so.
No, it's okay. We always do the motion first. We have to. That's by Robert rules. And I have to ask for a second and then ask for discussion. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second
Okay, open for discussion.
To answer your question, Walt, he lives in Cloquet, so about a half hour. I also would recommend that we start him out, because of his experience, at a higher step than if he were to have no experience, and that is this Appendix A from the contract. I've highlighted step C and what his wage would be, should that be approved.
What is the difference between the previous
Nothing.
officer and this?
Nothing, we did the exact same thing for the last officer we
No, I
hired.
mean, the one he was replacing, what was he at when he started?
D. He was at step D with longevity and an additional $1 an hour, so.
Any further questions or discussion? Did you want to include that with your motion, Chris?
Yes, I can include that. We would start him at step C on the wage grid.
Who did the second again?
Correct.
Greg, do you approve that as part of your second?
it. Yes.
All right. I'll ask again, any further questions or discussion? And I believe 30 minutes is what we put down as our response time that we want our officer to respond if they're called. We as a liaison, do you remember?
Well,
Do we have a limit, mileage?
We have people further than that. We have people that live in
Yeah.
Esco currently. All that were on before I got here, I think that was
Yeah.
lifted to my understanding.
We went from miles to minutes, and then we kind of took that out because there were so many different areas that they were coming from.
Okay,
I think we set a reasonable
okay.
distance.
But just like Greg and Walt were saying here, these are one of those cost-saving things for us. And Administrator Bloom mentioned is because he has all those things, we've already been able to eliminate paying for a firearms instructor, taser instructor. He's a FTO, he's a background investigator. So those are all the things that we don't contract out for anymore. So having that experience is saving us money. And every step we take for that, we've also done the same thing with a part-timer that's a defensive tactics instructor. We're not contracting that stuff out anymore. So just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you. All right,
Hey Ted, just any
Yes.
of those side comments not going on air at all if they're not in a mic.
Okay,
So there's a lot of talking that people are not gonna be able to hear. You know,
okay,
so-
I'll remind people to come up, thank you. With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, thank you, we have that recorded. All right, also, Phil, congratulations on the backhoe, and thank you very much for the work on that, and just to mention, I think a few said how much you're saving the city, and that's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, and your honor. Yep.
Thank you too, Katie.
That was all Phil.
Moving on to 6E Riverside Arena overhead door. Excuse me, did I skip one?
Resolution.
I did. D, Resolution 2105-01, Jordan Miller, PT Police Officer.
So Jordan Miller is a part-time police officer for us, and we are required to pass a resolution for some para requirements, so that's all this is.
So that is to utilize him as a part-time.
You got it.
Okay. Council?
I'll make the motion we approve resolution 21-05-01 for part-time police officer Jordan Millers.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further question, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now moving on to 6E Riverside Arena overhead door.
This was something that we also budgeted for. Guile recently got me a couple of different quotes. So one door is a good door, and then another door, the more expensive one, is a better insulated door. He did mention that the better insulated door isn't really necessary for the purposes of the arena. Because we want it cold. So it's not like a typical garage door. So I don't know if you guys have any specific questions on the garage door. We did budget $7,000 for it, so it came in significantly below what we had budgeted for.
So we're saying the lowest one is the 2,800, the DC garage door,
Sorry.
page 79. I don't know if that helps.
I don't have
Yours aren't
pages
labeled.
on mine. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions by the council? This was a budgeted item, and we were coming way under what was quoted for the budget. Discussion and or motion?
Motion to approve the DC garage door for $2,800.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to number 6F, Trunk Highway 73 Loop Trail Phase 1 request for advertisement approval.
Okay, so we're getting closer with the trail. The next step is advertising for it. There are a couple of easements that I have to get signed. So if you make a motion to approve, just make sure that it includes pending those getting those easement documents signed. So in your packet, you've got what route the trail will go. So there was a little bit of a change from probably the original route that you guys had, and that being that they decided MnDOT is actually requiring us to go through the stoplight on 61 so that we are only crossing the road once. So it required a little bit more engineering for a culvert, but that was the biggest change from start to finish. The engineer estimate is I wrote it on here, I think. $1,213,764.20, of which most, if not all of that, is covered by grants, which the grants are all listed in the engineer minutes. So if you guys want to reference those, if you get any questions. But at this point, I just need request for approval so that when I get those easements, we can go out for advertisement for this project.
Questions and/or motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Katie, good job on that. That's a big project to get going with all that grant money. All right, we are moving on to number 7. We're not doing presentation here, we're just reading. Chief, do you want to?
Chief Jutton and I actually read through these with the officers, with the
Okay.
exception of the last one there. So I don't know that we need to read through them necessarily,
No,
but
they're just included for your
yeah,
view
Okay.
that they've already been awarded their letters.
Okay.
yep. So I think what
I
we
think
make.
I'm just going to read them because I think it's very well worth, because these guys deserve these. So 7A, life-saving medal, Officer Travis. B, letter of appreciation, Officer Travis. C, letter of commendation, Officer Chad. Letter of commendation, Officer Jason. Letter of appreciation, Officer Jason. Letter of commendation, Officer Ray. Letter of appreciation, Officer Ray. Life-saving medal, Chad. Officer Chad. I think that's pretty impressive. And thank you, Chief, for the work, and Katie, and thanks to all the officers for what they've done. And these things that they have been awarded reflect their dedication to the city of Moose Lake and to the people that they help during these situations. So it's greatly appreciated, the officers, and well deserved. Thank you.
Pass it on, thanks.
Anything from the council, comments? Thank you. Moving on to 8, committee and board meeting minutes. 8A, Moose Lake Water and Light Commission, March 16th, 2021. 8B, Moose Lake Area Fire District Protection District, April 13th, 2021. 8C, Moose Lake Parks and Recreation, May 3rd, 2021. Any discussion on the committee or board meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'll move on to announcements. Regular Moose Lake City Council meeting Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, 4 p.m. Moose Lake City Council chamber right here. Moose Lake Economic Development Authority Wednesday, May 19th, 12 p.m. in the conference room. Moose Lake Water and Light Commission regular meeting Tuesday, May 18th at 1 p.m. the city right here chamber. Moose Lake Housing Redevelopment Authority Board Monday, June 14th, 11 a.m. Hillside Manor office. Moose Lake Area Fire District Tuesday, June 8th, 6:30 Emergency Response Center. Moose Lake Park Board meeting Monday, June 7th, 6:30 p.m. City Council room right here. Anything else? Council? Anybody present? Hearing none. Adjournment. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Adjourned. Thank you, everyone.